Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Easy Does It, a podcast created specifically for the amazing members of the MJ team. Rob and I are back with you again for another great episode. Obviously, we have something to share.
If you couldn't tell already what was going on here.
We have been saying that we have some exciting things going on with the podcast, and here we are with the exciting things. We are now, I guess, putting our toes in the water for a video podcast.
I think we've done more than put our toes in the water. Like this is a whole thing.
It's like happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about emotions today. And so I just need to address the fact that my emotions are a little bit all over the place as we start kind of doing something brand new. Yeah. So I'm excited.
I am too.
I'm nervous.
It's okay.
But I'm excited.
I'm nervous too. But I'm excited to be here too.
I know. It's so exciting. I would be remiss if I did not thank everyone who has made this absolutely possible. Our set is still a work in progress, but already looks amazing. Yeah. So a big shout out to Corey and Robbie and Randall, the marketing team, for just supporting us in doing this.
Yeah. Shout out Corey. Thank you so much for all your time and effort. Randall, Robbie, like the whole team. I mean, I know more of marketing's been included in this, but we have a whole set. This is pretty wild. So thank you guys. Appreciate you guys.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just got to get into the topic because I think I can get
your bearings.
Yeah.
We got to get a good old would you rather in.
Oh, yes.
I almost forgot. I came in here and Robbie was setting up and I was like, I better look this up before we get started. So the would you rather win a game but know that you cheated, or lose the game but know that you tried your best?
I'm gonna say I'm not a super competitive. I like to win, but I'm not a super competitive person, so I'm gonna say lose.
Oh man, this is almost as bad as the $100 in the toilet, which has been huge. I do not know how many people have said, I'd stick my hand in the toilet, which is repulsive. I can't believe any of you guys.
I'm just telling you, everybody is on my side.
Listeners out there, she's come back to my office and we've talked about this, and it's gone from like $100. Randall was in the office, and then he was like, I'm like, if there were 5 $100 bills in the toilet, and would you still get it? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And then I started adding things that were in the toilet, and then he was still down. So y'all nasty.
Nope.
But would you be okay losing the game?
Yes. Like I said, I'm not super competitive.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It would be harder for me to know. And of course it also matters the stakes of the game.
Yeah.
Like if it's just like family game night and, you know, I took a peek at somebody's cards, then I could probably live with that.
That may or may not have happened here.
It definitely has happened. So if the stakes of the game were higher and I didn't win it fair and square, I would feel very guilty. I would feel very guilty about that.
Yeah.
So, but in our house on family game night, I mean, it is, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
I get it.
So, so I think I would rather lose and know that I tried my best.
Sure.
Particularly if the stakes of the game were high.
Yeah.
Yep. What about you? I feel like
Well, the kids, they play Yahtzee with Susie all the time, and I don't really care for that game so much. I mean, it's straight up just chance. For the most part, it's just chance. Mm-hmm. And like Monopoly, I'm not a big fan of that one either, because it's like you have a 2-hour commitment. You're going to be there.
It's crazy.
I get roughed up by the family all the time. I'm just like, I'm out. I'm okay cheating a little bit. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So I want to try to win, but there's some games I'm like, I don't even care. Y'all can beat me. Like if the TV's on and I can sit here and play and watch, it's fine. But if I got to sit there for like 2-3 hours, I'm like, get me out.
Yeah.
I'm not a big board game person. I don't really care for that stuff so much, but
I do love board games, but not Monopoly.
Not Monopoly.
That's too much.
Well, I know your kids are probably a little older now. They have the Kids Monopoly.
Yes.
Which that's like a 15-minute game, and it's great.
I can deal with that.
But the other one, not so much.
Yep.
It gets me emotionally tied up.
Okay, so are you saying cheat and win?
Yeah, I'll cheat. I'll cheat.
Okay. Well, you're
Robbie, but a couple other people of our production staff up in here, like we're gonna cheat.
Oh.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, you heard it here first. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
That's what it is. You know, you can't let your kids win on everything.
No, you can't. No, we do. Even though I'm not competitive, we do not do that. We don't let them win all the time, because I do think that is also important. Because we do have some sore losers in my house as well, and you got to learn how to lose with grace as well.
Oh, Jack, if he loses a game, he's like, "Mommy, you didn't let me do this or that." And he loses it. He's like, "No, this one didn't count." And then he wants to start over. Yeah. He's a rule changer.
Yep.
Charlie gets so mad at him all the time. I can't do that.
No. Okay. I am excited about our topic today, and I'm glad that we chose this topic because it feels like it's something that like is in my wheelhouse, so that I can pretend like the cameras aren't here and we can just talk about it. So today our topic is EQ, which stands for, and honestly, I'm not even positive I knew this, emotional quotient. Similar to IQ, which I guess would be thing? Like intellectual quotient, maybe.
Sure.
I did not look up IQ, but I did look up EQ. And so EQ, we know it better as emotional intelligence. I don't know why they couldn't just call it EI, whatever.
I did see in some of the studies and the research, some people just refer to it as EI. But more often people say EQ.
EQ, yeah, even though it does not line up with emotional intelligence, but whatever. So let's start off as, well, first of all, probably people have heard like, oh my God, he doesn't have any EQ. Or she's got great EQ. That's kind of what we're talking about today, is like this ability to, what I thought was really more of like an ability to interact with others. But as I did some research for today, I kind of feel like I'm recognizing it's like most things, way more about you than it is about other people.
I've found the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I'm sure you found the definition and you did your research. Of course you did.
Yeah, let me put my paper up.
We need to have a dictionary right here for you opened up. So the emotional intelligence, what I came across was it's essentially our ability to like navigate emotion, recognize our awareness around it, like on the emotional spectrum. So it's not only just recognizing other people's emotion, but then also being aware of our own, which I never really thought about that side of it. I just know that like I can pick up on, you know, the vibe of the room. Some people just have that innate ability to do that when they come in, or pick up on that people are upset or somebody's happy, or like, hey, I probably don't need to say anything. But then the flip side of that, looking in the mirror of, am I managing my own emotion? What did you come across for that?
Yeah, same thing. Ability to perceive, understand, comprehend, and manage emotions. That's a lot of words there. Perceive, understand, comprehend, and manage refers to how you recognize and respond to the emotions of others, as well as how you manage your own emotions and understand how they may be perceived by others. I feel like I've always thought of EQ as like your ability to read the room.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's part of it, but I also don't think it reminded me. I wrote this quote. I don't know if I'm saying this quote exactly correctly, but the most important relationship in your life is the one you have with yourself. Unless you're tuned into your feelings and why you're feeling that way, you don't stand a chance of being able to do that with other people.
Right.
And I feel like I've never really quite honed in on that until really starting to dive into this kind of work and preparing for the podcast and all of those things. So much of it comes back to, first and foremost, your relationship with yourself and understanding where your emotions come from. Why do they show up in certain situations? How do you manage through them? So I think it's EQ now, as I recognize this, it's way more than just being able to read the room.
Yeah. Yeah. Emotions. I mean, even the question of how is this emotion showing up right now? Where is it coming from for me? Like we talked about the questions that we ask ourselves in the past, which I came across even more, you know, going through this stuff. But something that I found was interesting, which I guess this is kind of going down the path of managing emotions, but they were talking about how emotions are more data versus, you know, true, like if you look at it as something different, it's just data. It's not an actual like fact of your emotion. And so looking at the data piece, if we're trying to figure out how to navigate our emotion, then it's, I am not my emotion. I am not this emotion in this moment, nor if it's repetitive and it keeps coming back up. If I look at it as data, I'm seeing myself getting, angry at something, or I see this come back up for me. If you're able to have that external awareness, almost see yourself in the third person, it changes how you interact with that. And it'll help you with making better decisions, especially if it's a challenging choice you have to make, or you're in an argument with somebody and you can actually recognize I'm getting upset, or there's emotion welling up right here. It helps you make better decisions.
I wrote, emotions can help and they can hurt. They can help or they can hurt you, but you have no say in the matter whether they help or hurt until you understand them.
Yeah.
And so, I thought that was such an interesting point, is like emotions, they're just, I don't know if the word is cues. I don't know if the word is, it's data. And it's so weird to think of emotions as data, but it is. So I'll give you, this is a real fresh example of just this morning. So I have a almost 15-year-old. Happy early birthday to Mila. She'll be 15 on Saturday.
Ooh.
15. So today at school, they have like a different schedule because they have some, like juniors are taking a test this morning or something. And so I don't have a problem with Mila staying home until she has to be in for her classes, which weren't going to start until later today. So she had already made arrangements to get a ride from somebody else to go into school at like 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Totally get it. I wouldn't want to sit in a room and do nothing until 12 o'clock and then go to my classes either.
Yeah.
So she calls me on my way and she's like, school is just 3 hours today. Like, do I even have to go? I don't know what happened, but something came over me. Like, I was just angry. I was like, no, you're going to school. Yes, it is only 3 hours. You could look at that both ways. It's only 3 hours. Why do I have to go? Or it's only 3 hours. Just go and be done with it.
Yeah.
You could look at that both ways. And I was thinking about all of this, and I was thinking, like, why did her calling me and asking me to just stay home? Why did that make me so angry? Like, why did that emotion flare up?
Did you get an answer to that?
I don't know that I know the answer to that yet. I don't know if it's because I'm not going to sit here and say that I wanted to go to school every day. I mean, I was a good student. I did like that, but it didn't mean I wanted to go every day. I don't know if it comes from like, you should feel the same way that I feel about those things. I don't know, but I'm going to tell you, when I was on the phone with her, I was really having to exercise some control because I wanted to be like, I don't even, like get into an argument with her about it. And I said, I'm sorry that this isn't the answer that you want, but can you understand why? Don't ask you 15-year-old if they can understand, because they can't. But I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. You're going to sit at home and do nothing. Just like go
to school.
So it is, I started thinking about that, where I don't know where that comes from. And I don't know exactly how to identify that emotion. I did write that down too, because I think this is interesting. 36%, this comes from my book. I can't show up without no books. This book is in the library. Emotional Intelligence 2.0, which means there must be an Emotional Intelligence 1.0 somewhere. That's not in the library. But
is that Daniel Goleman, or is that somebody different?
Travis Bradberry.
Okay.
So, and this one too, because I love a test, like a survey online. This one comes with a handy dandy.
Look at that.
In the back. So you get a code. Is
that one in the library?
Uh-huh.
That's the actual book?
No, this is my copy.
Oh, dang. I was going to say, I'm going to go in there and rip that thing out of there before anybody else does.
But what he says in here is 36% only 36% of people could accurately identify their emotions. That's not very...
That's a low number.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And all emotions are derivations, that's a fancy vocab word, of 5 core feelings: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, and look who is making a reappearance: shame. Happiness, sadness, anger, fear, and shame. And so all other emotions come from one of those 5. And so this is the chart that I brought. I told Rob before we started, I brought him a chart. This is completely different now with the video. It's like I feel like I can Vanna White it. Okay, so look at this chart.
I didn't know you were handing me a chart.
Oh, I brought myself a copy too.
You're so professional.
So it has all of those feelings across the top: happy, sad, angry, afraid, ashamed. And then it has like versions, intensity of those feelings: low, medium, high. So when I got to work, I started looking at anger. And I started trying to figure out which one of these better describes how I felt when I was having this conversation with Mila. I think I was probably medium.
Annoyed.
Yeah.
I look down there at annoyed.
Yeah, annoyed, irritated, upset,
Yeah.
agitated. So you can see the words. A lot of times we'll say like, I'm feeling happy, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling angry, when there's like a bazillion other words that can more specifically describe how we feel.
Yeah.
And I think until we can, clearly I'm not good at it because I couldn't even do it this morning. I need to do some more work in that area, obviously. I think it's hard for us to know what to do about the emotion until we get better at identifying the emotion beyond just happy, sad, angry, afraid, ashamed. Because I think then, like look at ashamed. We've talked about worthiness on here before. I could say I feel ashamed, but saying I feel unworthy, that kind of gets down to something a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like that piece was really interesting to me, that number one, a lot of people can't identify, at least down to this kind of more specific place, their emotions. But also that all emotions come from these 5.
Yeah.
And picking that out is super helpful in being aware of where you are yourself.
Yeah. This is a really interesting chart.
Where would you say you are right now?
Happy. I'm happy to be here. No, I was just trying to think, because as I went through all this emotional intelligence stuff, like I was looking at everything and I'm like, I feel like I can pick up on stuff pretty quickly, but then also, you know, my wife has told me a couple of times, she's like, you know, aren't you excited about this? So we're going on vacation in a week and a half, something like that. So she's always like, are you excited? And I always know she's testing me. She's trying to see where I'm at. And I think the most excitement she's probably seen was when I had a Mustang. I used to go to Mustang Week every single year. A couple times I went with her and the kids, and then other times I went with Ryan in the warehouse because he's my boy. So we drive down there. It was a whole thing. We'd be down there from like Thursday and come back home on Sunday. It's my favorite trip. And so I'm like, yo, Mustang Week's next week. I'm like, here it comes. And then she's like, well, I wish you would be this excited about our trips. And I'm like, what do you want from me? I'm excited.
She's looking for Mustang Week level excitement on every trip.
I'm just giving you what I got. Giving you what I got in the tank. But it's like I'm always excited about our trips, but I guess it's not at that same level. But so then she's just like, you just seem so flat about it. And I'm like, no, I am excited. And she's just like, mm-hmm. But then like, I don't know that I always show a ton of emotion. And so I'm conscious of that. So I try to bring more animation and, you know, and show that towards people. But I tell you, this last weekend on Saturday, we had our softball tournament weekend. I know we talked about that a little bit, but man, I tell you what, those first few games we did pretty good. I was pretty happy. And then one of the games, the girls like let off the gas a little bit. And I'm like, y'all need to stay locked in. And the other team started to come back a little bit. And I was like, here it goes. Mm-hmm. Here it goes. And I'm like on the side of the field. I'm like clapping them up. Like, let's go. Pay attention. Let me see that prep step. Hey, know where the play is. Like, I'm trying to do it for them. And we end up winning the game. And then we come down to one of our final games and we beat a team, beat their socks off. And then it led into the championship. And there was a couple girls that I'm watching and I'm like, they're just not in it. I can see one of them's, she's looking at the butterflies out in the outfield. And, you know, there's a couple other players on the team that they just weren't locked in. And I'm feeling it. And so when they mess up a play, then I'm like, agitated. Where's it at? Angry. You know? And so it's like, what is going on? Furious, outraged, boiling, irate, seething. That's a good one. But like, I feel that. And I'm like, why don't you feel that too? So I know that emotions come up for us, but going back to like, where does this come from? Well, we practiced for days and days and days, hours and hours. And then we get here and then it's like, we're letting off the gas. But going back to what you were saying earlier, I was just thinking for you and your daughter, like y'all are just in different places. She's viewing school as just like, do I really have to do this? And for you, you're like, what else are you going to do? Like go to school. It's like, well, I'm sure she could find many other things that she would want to do besides go to school. We've all been there, but I think that's a piece of emotional intelligence is recognizing that if I'm not seeing eye to eye with this person or emotions are flaring and I'm not noticing, that there may be other ways to look at this, then, and I'm not aware of that, then I'm just living in my emotions. And then sometimes we become our emotions. So, maybe for you guys, y'all are just in different places.
It's funny that you say that because, of course, as soon as I got off the phone with Mila, I called Michael. So Michael, yeah. So Michael's out of town. His team's playing in Georgia, and so I called him. I'm like, "You want to believe what Mila just did?" And so I'm just kind of venting, but then you just kind of hinted at this. I don't know if you said the word responsibility. So I'm thinking one of my strengths is responsibility. I feel a deep responsibility to the things that I commit myself to following through and seeing them through, that type of thing. And so I said that exact thing to Michael. I said, her only responsibility is going to school. So now I'm wondering if I'm kind of thinking that's one of my things is following through, sticking to what I'm supposed to be doing. And maybe because I think in my mind that's her only responsibility right now is to go to school and her not wanting to do it. Maybe that's part of why it ruffled my feathers quite a bit this morning, is that I'm seeing her not wanting to take responsibility for the thing that she alone is responsible for, which is going to school. Like we've talked with them before about like, that's your job.
Yeah.
But you also like seeing, I wrote that down. Each of us has our own unique lens, which we know that, right? Yeah. Through which we see the world. And EQ helps us see beyond our own lens. Obviously, I was not seeing through anyone else's lens but my own this morning. But when you're saying to yourself, how could anybody see this any differently? Like, how could she see that any differently? And I think it's exactly what you're talking about. It's because she and I will never share the same lens. Even though we are alike in many ways, we're not going to share the same lens because we're not the same person. So how would she, despite being almost 15, she's just not going to see it the same way that I do because our lenses are different.
What do you think her responsibility is? Like, what do you think she would say?
It might be, I do think that she feels responsible for getting good grades and like doing her school work and that kind of thing. I do think that she feels responsible for those things, which maybe too is part of the reason why I'm like, so go to school.
She must have just viewed it differently.
Yes. Well, and I mean, I think when they're teenagers at that age, it is very much like, this is what I want. I don't want to go to school today. And it's like, I can't see anything else other than that. Yeah. So I think it could also possibly be that.
Yeah.
I'll keep psychoanalyzing myself all day long.
I'm sure you will. So I did want to talk. So like, there's different types of people out there. And I was just curious, your perspective on it. I was doing some research. I use a little bit of, as you know, Chat GPT, and then also it'll like kind of it'll take me in different avenues. And I'm like, let me do some real research on that. But thinking about like, when you look at high performers, how does EQ have a relationship with high performers? And so, you think of CEOs or you think of high performers here at Morris-Jenkins. How do you think EQ relates to high performers, or how does that show up for them?
I'm glad that you asked that. I have some statistics.
Okay.
So first of all, EQ impacts almost everything that we do and say every day. So if you're watching or listening to this episode, I think we don't understand, like a lot of things we talk about on here, how this is kind of like running in the background consistently. And so I think what we do and say every day is determined a lot by our level of EQ, so to speak. So EQ accounts for 58% of performance in all job types. It's the single biggest predictor of performance in the workplace. Single biggest predictor of performance in the workplace. Whatever performance looks like, because, high performer or performance can mean, performance in the area of training looks very different than performance in the area of like a contact center, a CSR. So whatever performance looks like, your EQ is the biggest predictor of that. And there is a link between people's EQ and their earnings. For every point that you can increase your EQ, which goes to another question that I'm sure we'll talk about, for every point you increase your EQ, it adds $1,300 to your annual salary.
Let me increase a few points here.
Let me see what I can do today.
Man, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's big. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
My mind automatically goes to to challenge that even. I see how it could be effective for a tech. I see how it could be effective for maybe a supervisor or someone in the office. But I think what about somebody in purchasing or in the data processing? How would it show up for somebody like that?
I think here we have, no matter what you do, like even if you were just sitting there making this ship run, because that's what we have a lot of people in purchasing, a lot of people that are they're just there making it happen. I think regardless, we have so many intersections because, if you follow a call comes into the contact center and, a customer needs heat or they need air or, God forbid they got poop on the floor. That's terrible. But if they need our assistance for something, then if you follow that call, it is just amazing to me how that works its way through our systems and our processes. It pretty much touches in some way, shape, or form everybody, which means that every department in some way, shape, or form is communicating at an intersection with a different department. Yeah. So even if you are in purchasing, you're constantly in contact with the warehouse. You're constantly in contact with, the supervisors and install, because we have to purchase the stuff that we need to help people in their homes. So I think there's still, even if you don't have as many touch points, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
If you don't have as many touch points, I still feel like the relationship piece with the people that you do intersect with, even if you are back there just like hammering out the processes, it's still, it can make or break your day-to-day interactions with people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thinking about the intersections and departments, I know Dewey used to always talk about that from our fundamentals. It's, all the conflict, most of the conflict that's happening is between intersections between departments. And so if I'm just going to purchase or I'm just going to do the warehouse thing, but I don't need all that stuff. Just think of how you interact with your teammates. And if you need to speak to a vendor, if you need to talk to the technicians or anything, a lot of the stuff that we do every single day has to do with communication and relationships. And so if you have a hard time navigating that stuff, or it's like, I need some tools to help me in this, emotional intelligence is one of those things. And I think some people, I think we talked about the 4-lane highways of different talents that we have. Some people have a little bit more of a keen empathy side than others. But it's not that you can't develop emotional intelligence. It's a skill that can be developed, but you may find that certain aspects or certain people it's easier for them. I was thinking, I was thinking about emotional intelligence and how it relates to management. And there was this fella, and he was talking about, it's actually Daniel Goleman. He talks a lot about emotional intelligence. He's an emotional intelligence guy. He says, close your eyes and imagine every manager that you've had. And he says, imagine the worst one you've had and imagine the best. And he says, give a quality about each one that you really loved or you really didn't like. And he says, I can guarantee you the quality that you didn't like about a manager probably had to deal with emotional intelligence. They had a low amount of that. And then the one that you liked a lot probably had higher emotional intelligence. I mean, if you think about it, if you're trying to run a team, manage a group, it always comes down to how you communicate with each other. And communication is a massive, massive piece of success. You have to be able to communicate a vision. You have to be able to communicate to a customer or navigate through problems, conflict. It all has to do with communication, and emotional intelligence just amplifies that or minimizes it or diminishes it.
Yeah, that was, I was going to ask you that question. Do you think that people, so IQ also, I mean, I knew this because this goes back to some pieces of being in the school system. So your IQ is fixed from birth. Your IQ is your ability to learn, right? So it's not like you don't come out the womb genius level. It's like your IQ is fixed from birth. It's your ability, your capacity to be able to continue to learn. So EQ though is different. But I guess you kind of already answered this question, but I guess it's a lot like the things we've talked about before. Some people might have a little bit more ease within building their emotional intelligence. And while it might be something that other people have to work a little bit harder on. So I think that it comes easier for some people, but everyone has to work on it, regardless of what it is. I also, to go back to what you were saying about leaders and managers, I saw some things about that too. And I've asked this question in classes that I've done. It's like, give me the 3 things that your best manager or best boss ever did, or the qualities that you would use to describe them. And not once does somebody say like, I wish they were really good at math. Like they were talking about math, or I wish my manager was so great because he could, I don't know, reset a toilet. They don't say things. That's not what people are looking for.
Right.
In a manager, in a leader. They're looking for these things that we're talking about with EQ. I found that there are 4 categories that kind of make up EQ, and I think we've kind of hit on all of them already, but I just wanted to say them so I was clear about the things that we kind of consider when we consider EQ. So the first one is self-awareness. Which is the reason why we spent so much time today talking about emotions, right? Being aware of your emotions. If you say, I feel sad, what kind of sad? Do you feel lonely? Do you feel heartbroken? Do you feel defeated? What is it? So you need to go deeper than just, I feel sad, recognizing, understanding them, naming them. I think that's part of this self-awareness piece. I think you also need to recognize part of that self-awareness is like your triggers. Clearly something triggered me this morning. I need to figure out what it is. So self-awareness is the first one. The next one is self-management. So once you feel that emotion, what do you do with it? So we can't help feeling the emotion. We've said that before. We're emotional creatures. Our brains, there's another good diagram in this book. Our brains are wired that way. We will always feel the emotion first. Always. That's the way that our bodies are set up. So, which goes back to self-preservation, right? We talked about the 2 parts of the brain, the lizard brain or your amygdala and the thinking brain. So what are your coping skills? Deep breath, taking a walk. This sounds exactly like what we talked about last week.
I literally was going through all the things that you could help with your emotional intelligence and all the things. And it just keeps going back to the exact same stuff over and over again. Breath work, go for a walk.
Positive self-talk. So first, what are my emotions? Second, what do I do with them? What are my coping skills around my emotions? So I guess if I go back to my situation this morning, kudos to me, pat on the back. I guess part of my self-management, my coping skills were to not engage in a back and forth argument. It was just to say, you're going to school. I'm sorry that you don't agree with that, but that's just, I'm not going to engage in a power struggle. I don't know if that's a coping skill or not, but we're going to call it today.
The answer is no.
Okay. The answer is no. So the next one is this. So the first 2 really focus on the person. So which, going back to what we talked about before, it starts with you. Surprise, surprise. And then the last two are social awareness. So recognizing and understanding other people's emotions and your ability to convey emotions to others. And then the last one is relationship management. So when you do all of those above, then you can communicate better. You can interact better with other people. You have more empathy for where people are coming from. I even put like pluses, self-awareness, plus self-management plus social awareness equals relationship management.
Yeah.
So when you're able to do all of those things, you're better able to navigate the relationships that you have with people.
I had the same 4 written down myself. But I want to ask you, when you look at these 4 or really 3 areas, because the relationship management, maybe you could say 4, it equals that, but which one of those do you feel like you need to work on the most? Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and then it equals relationship management, but maybe that one too.
So the handy dandy code in the back of this book, when you take the test, it tells you which one you need. So I kind of have I already have an inside. You go on.
Hit us up. What you got?
I mean, I could pull my results out of my.
Oh my Lord. I can't believe this. Do you remember which one off the dome piece?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So my 2 lowest fall within social awareness and relationship management. And that's not really surprising to me, I don't think, because I am more introverted. I do like spending a lot of time reflecting and thinking. And so it's not surprising to me that I don't know. I don't want to say that I'm self-aware. I feel like I'm semi-self-aware, but I think that would be for other people to say, if I'm self-aware or not.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like the first 2, or the self-awareness, and then I would say the social awareness, I feel like you pick up on how other people are feeling and the emotions in the room and all that stuff. I feel like you do a pretty good job of reading that. I mean, I know that you've been in a lot of the meetings that I've been in with the management team and everything, and I'm watching the group, and then I look at you and I'm like, oh, she sees what's happening here. But I feel like you have a good social awareness, especially.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I wasn't surprised that my lowest scores fell within the ones that involve engaging more with other people, because I enjoy alone time.
Sure.
I enjoy time to be by myself and think and write and that kind of thing. So I think my 2 would be more of the, maybe even relationship management in particular, but just being better at, and sometimes because I do spend a lot of time in my own head, then maybe when I'm in a conversation, I'm still in my own head.
Yeah.
So maybe working on that piece, I think would probably be where I would start.
Yeah, sure. It seems like that, that's a good assessment for everybody to take, just to know where you stand. Because just going through and looking at these 4, there's definitely some areas I'm like, I could probably do a better job of this. I do feel like I have good self-awareness, but I also still get, just like anybody can, I get caught up in my emotions, and I'm like, I have to keep talking about softball because this is where all my emotions tend to pop up. I mean, even just the other day, we were at a game, and there's one girl on the team. I don't know how many times I have to say the same thing over and over. Like, I'll give a correction, and literally the next swing, she back at the same one. And I'm like, what is happening? And it's funny, she goes up to bat. She needs to lift her hands up. Her hands are like right around shoulder level. I'm like, you ain't going to swing hard like that, kid. And sometimes she'll make connection. I'm like, that's good. But imagine what it would be like if you hit it harder. But then I find myself in the games. I'm like, it's game time. I don't know what emotion that one is. Afraid, terrified, angry, sad that we done talked about this 300 times. But then I'm like, I also don't know. I'm like, dang, I might need to re-strategize on how I'm handling that. But I catch myself in the moment. I'm like, what are you doing? But then just the same, when you're talking to techs, or I find myself sometimes now when I'm fairly busy, productive, I have a lot of stuff going on, but it's like, I don't always have the time to talk through things like I normally like to. And I catch myself, which is a no-no, finishing people's sentences. I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm trying to hurry the conversation up so that I can get off, and go do what I need to do, which I know is not the right thing. So I have to catch myself in the moment of like, just let them finish. Don't finish their sentence. Let them say what they need to. And sometimes they finish talking and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that they were going to say it like that. So I find myself in moments where I have good self-awareness and others where I'm like, I probably could work on that a little bit.
Which is funny because all of that goes back to that underlying emotion. Like if you're feeling stressed or like gotta go, then it's funny how then all of those skills and things that we know, I mean, not to finish. It's like they go, it's like they're out the window.
It's like, yeah, hurry up. Get to it.
Get to the point.
Do you think that social media has played a piece into the social or the emotional intelligence that we have now?
I could see certainly I could see a couple of different things, I guess. The self-awareness piece, there's such like the Instagram life, when you're looking and scrolling on Instagram, it's like, God, everybody here looks happy. I'm seeing nothing but happy. And then, like we were talking about before, It's kind of like, gosh, is it normal for me to get angry at my daughter when she says she wants to stay home from school? Yeah. Like, I could see where it kind of could get you a little bit more separated from that. I can see how there's also too the immediacy of social media and being able to kind of fill some void of some sort. So I think that it definitely could play a part. I'm sure there's so many things about it that we don't even know, like how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I was thinking going through this, two aspects. You have the COVID side where everybody this is all you could see for the longest time, and so I feel like that might have slowed us down a little bit. There's moments that it's really nice that I don't have to smile all the time. It's just like you just see this. So I just think about the developmental side of kids and just people and some of those developmental years of I need to see your face and know how you're feeling. So I think you have that, but then on the social media side, you have the instant gratification stuff and maybe you're seeing the highlight reels often, but when you see all the other spectrums of emotion, it's like, how do I handle that? And let alone like if I'm scrolling, I just see it. I don't have to do anything with it. You might feel it, but it's like there's no reaction to it. But then when I see it face to face, I almost feel like the digital society has made it to where those face to face interactions have become more of a commodity. Like I don't get that much.
Yeah.
And I do think that, as we progress farther into the future, you have AI, you have so much digitization of everything. I mean, if you need food, you could just order, what is it, Grubhub or whatever it is. Like you can get food delivered to the front door. I don't have to talk to anybody. So I feel like in society, that face-to-face interaction will become more of an important piece of good service. I mean, we think in the industry that we're in, heating and air, plumbing, electrical, going face-to-face and talking to customers, that's hugely important.
Yeah, you have to do it.
Yeah. I mean,
we can't fix your plumbing from afar.
No. I mean, one day somebody might figure that out. Hook me up. Maybe I'll need to invent that or something and be a billionaire. But I just think we owe it to our customers to have good emotional intelligence, work on that skill so that I can pick up on, hey, I said something and I could tell that it, maybe the person feel uneasy. And I don't know if it's what I said or how I said it. And being able to read those cues and the body language and, that intuition feeling of like something's a little off. I might need to ask them a question about it. But I think that's how you turn the dial up and improve service, improve the quality of, what you're bringing to the table. So I feel like there's been some hindrances, but it's also on the other side, it's actually a really big benefit that we are in the industry we are in because most people don't get the face-to-face interactions. And so that makes it where you bring something to the table where they're like, wow, that was already a good person. And the experience that they created that's worth it to me. Create such great value with that. So I almost feel like that's a differentiator in our trade as well.
Yeah, it kind of makes like they're getting more practice. It's almost like the face-to-face interaction piece is becoming kind of like a lost art.
Yeah.
Of being able to have interactions with people. I guess fortunately for our folks who are in the field, they do get to practice, which I think is probably a benefit to them. I mean, I think of, so many of the stories go back to our kids, but we were just at Chick-fil-A last night and I had on my app, I had a free chocolate chip cookie, which by the way was warm and delicious. But I told Leah, if you want this chocolate chip cookie, you're going to have to go up and ask for it. You just show my phone.
Nope.
Scan the thing.
She don't want to do that.
Yeah. She's like, I don't, what do I say? I'm like, well, let's practice.
Can I get a cookie?
Let's practice. So I'm like, you could just say, I have a reward for a free cookie. I wanted to use that, please. And boop, boop, scan the phone and
What noise was that?
Boop, boop. That's not really the sound that it makes at Chick-fil-A either. But it's, that is kind of what we're talking about here. I mean, Leah is 12 and she doesn't even want to go up to the person and ask a question. Yeah. And so she kept saying, can you go with me? Will you do it? I was like, no, you have, if you want this cookie, you got to ask.
Yeah.
And so what if he says no? Then say, okay, thank you. I mean,
but she had a free cookie.
I know, but how sometimes it gets complicated. You can only use this at the Matthews location.
It's just a cookie,
or whatever.
man. It's just a cookie.
I don't know. Sometimes it happens. So I was not going to do it for her because she more than even Mila needs to be pushed. And so I guess maybe that's kind of what we're alluding to here is she needs more repetitions and more interactions like that to help her build some of those skills to even be able to enter into a conversation about a free chocolate chip cookie.
It's just a cookie, man.
I know.
What's the worst he gonna say? No.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I said. Yeah. What's the worst he can say? She wanted to be prepared. I mean, she's my daughter. Okay. Mm-hmm. She wanted to be prepared.
I was about to say, where did that come from?
Apple tree. Mm-hmm. She wanted to be prepared for what if he says no or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, well, then just say okay and then walk away. I mean, you're going to have to start going into conversations not knowing what the outcome is going to be all the time. And I know that's hard.
That ties into the tools. So it's like the neuroplasticity we talked about on our previous episode, I caught a lot of that stuff in this it is a skill that you can continue to improve. Mm-hmm. And so putting yourself in incrementally more challenging circumstances, just go ask them for a cookie. Charlie and Jack, I do the same thing for them. They're like, can I get this? Can I order this? Daddy, can I get some more water? I'm like, you can ask the waiter or waitress when they come back. Okay.
What?
Or when we go to Chewy's on Friday, can we get some of the white sauce, the creamy jalapeno? And I'm like, yeah, you can ask. I don't want to ask. I'm like, do you want it? Yes. Just ask. They're going to give it to you. They ain't going to tell you no unless they ain't got none. But right. they always got it on Fridays. I know. I've been going there for 5 years. So I think that's the piece, like putting yourself in those incrementally challenging circumstances, but the regulating the emotional side, the awareness that we talked about earlier, I think that's another piece. So I did want to touch on the ideas that we've talked about in the past that carries over. I almost feel like you can just fill in the blank. Like if you ever want to work on anything in your life, just do these things. Go for a walk.
Journal.
If you want to work on your growth, go for a walk. So if you find yourself in those moments where like I'm finding myself in this moment, I think the first bit is awareness. I need to catch myself when I'm getting emotional, like this morning you were talking about, or me at the softball field. So the breath work is a big one. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's such a common thing. It really does bring you back and it grounds you. And even talking about grounding, like I feel the ground underneath my feet. Like it gets your mind off of the situation. It's like I could feel my grass and my toes in the grass. I can feel the pressure of my feet on the floor, like being present. I really like the skill of questioning yourself. Why am I feeling this way right now? Are there other emotions I can feel in the moment? Another one that I hadn't seen necessarily before, it's kind of close, but it was, what am I observing? And then what am I feeling? And so if you're feeling angry, sad, frustrated, irritated, you can ask yourself why. But what am I observing? What am I observing about the other person involved in this? What am I observing about myself? Not only how I feel, but how am I reacting to it? I think that's another piece of it. what am I observing about the scenario here? Is this something that's repetitive? So if you find yourself getting angry over and over again, why are you getting angry about it? You know, where is that coming from? Where does it derive from? And how can I change that? Because a lot of times you're like, I need to quit being so angry. Well, it's like, well, if you do, and you really want to change it that much, then you need to change it, but you got to start with, why are you getting angry?
Right.
And if it's not giving you that outcome, you have to make a change. I can't remember if on the last podcast we talked about inputs and outputs. I talked about it in the tech meeting, but I just talked about it again today. And it all had to do with, if the outputs you're getting in your life currently are not what you want, all you got to do is change your inputs. Stemming right there in between those two things is the cards you're dealt. I can't do anything about the cards I'm dealt in life, but I can change my inputs, how I feel about those cards, what I do about those cards. Randy was sitting in the front of the meeting today, and he was talking about how he loves to play poker. We're doing our little poker tournament for Levine's coming up, and he's just so pumped about it. And Mark's like, Randy, you don't even know how to play poker. And he's like, I know. I just like to come in. He goes, you always get to the last round. I don't even know how it works. He goes, I don't either. I have no idea what I'm doing. But like, he's given cards and he don't know what he's doing with them, and he gets a desirable outcome. That's great. That's called luck, or Jesus, whatever you want to say. Like, it just turned out the way it was needed to. But imagine people like Daniel Owens and Sam Broadbeck and some of those guys that like play cards all the time. They know what inputs to make to get the outcome they're looking for.
Right.
So when we look at our life, if it's emotional intelligence, like it would behoove me. I can make more money. I can go farther in life. It would behoove me to pay attention to how I feel. How am I reacting to this? And how can I improve these skills? Because it is a skill that you can improve. And if you just like, I can't improve this, then you're just truly by all the studies here, it's like you just giving up.
Mm-hmm. You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and I have a couple things, some of the things that you mentioned too, that you can use to work on your EQ. I think one thing as you were saying that though, that comes to mind, and is that we have to also change our mindset about, like, I'm not going to get in my feelings. I mean, you know, it's like, I know that some people are just like, I don't do emotions. I don't do emotions. I don't feel feelings.
We got to talk about that.
So it's like, if you don't do emotions, then emotions are going to do you. Mm-hmm. Like, I do think, and I don't know if it's more prevalent in men than it is in women.
That's what I came across. It was saying that it says in average society, women are a little bit more in touch with emotion than men. And it was saying something along the line, like men are better at like not managing the emotion, but more or less like maybe just navigating that and getting tasks done. Women it said from the studies that women are a little bit more surrounded around the emotion. So the decision centers just look a little bit different, but the outcomes, they are what they are. But it did say in the top, it says when women tend to be better than average on empathy as well as emotional skills, men tend to be better on average at self-confidence in groups typically, and managing and distressing emotions. But it says what's interesting, as leaders, the top 10% of leaders, there's no variance at emotional intelligence. It says, as people tend to develop, they pick up more skills to help them navigate. So it says in the top 10% of leaders management, it doesn't vary that much, but in the average population, it just looks a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't think that I wrote that down here, but as we're talking about it, I do think that is one of the first steps, is like getting over this fact that it's weak to do emotions. I don't know what the right word is. It's like, but I mean, you hear people say that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do emotions. Emotions is happening, whether you act on them or identify them or figure out where they're coming from. Now that's on you.
I don't know if I saw on your list here, shutting down, which one, which emotion is that one?
To me, shutting down probably, if we're going to call a spade, comes from fear.
I was going to say shame.
Yeah. Either one.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think first and foremost, if you're trying to work on your EQ, then if you're not dealing with emotions, if you're not looking at your emotions, if you're not trying to figure out where they're coming from, then that's the part you got to get over first. Is this is going to happen. This is the way my body is supposed to do. This is how it works. So let me navigate it instead of trying to push it down. That's not good. Going back to what we've talked about, that's not good for your mental or your physical health, is to keep pushing down, which I do think people do instead of really trying to navigate the emotion.
Yeah.
So I think that first and foremost. Second, I put journaling. We've talked about that on there, the reflection piece. I know some people aren't into like getting out a journal and writing, but even if it's just taking the time to do that reflection, mindfulness or meditation, I still haven't got, that comes up all the time too. I haven't made time for that yet. I need to. Practice listening, asking questions. And then the one that I liked the most, I think, is asking for feedback. So I like asking questions like, how did that come across to you? Is there a way that I could have said that maybe could have helped you internalize it differently? What did you hear me say? I often find myself using that one at home with my teenage girls is, I just said this. What did you hear me say?
Sure.
Because I can tell you it is not what I said. Or same thing with Michael. You know, Dad said this. What did you hear him say? Because it is not what was said.
I thought I was very clear. Very simple, but that is not what you heard.
So it is, what did you hear me say?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with asking those questions, particularly if you're with people that you trust or you already have a little bit of a relationship with. I know, for example, I meet with a couple of our managers here in helping plan their weekly meetings. I tend to come into meetings like that feeling like, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. I have already thought through all of this, that, and the other. And so I have had to take a step back and be able to say, what was your vision for our planning today? What do you think about what I just said? What did you hear me say? And so instead of coming in and kind of bulldozing, taking a second to say, could I have said that differently? Or how did that come across to you? I think it's important for you to get feedback on that.
How often do you find when you ask that it's like over here in left field from what you said?
I think for them, because we've been meeting pretty consistently now, I feel like now we're on a better, like on the same page when we're coming in and having these conversations. So, but I think there are some times where it's like I know I've done some planning sessions with people here before, and we've just been really slow to make progress. And so at that time, I wasn't asking the right questions, I don't think, because otherwise our output would be different. So that something was not working with the input because the output was not where it needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the same thing for, our techs out in the field. It's like, if I'm talking to the customer and I can kind of pick up that something's off, or that it's just like, okay, thanks for coming out. Appreciate you. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate you. And you're walking out of the house. Brandon says this all the time. If you were walking out of the house and their air conditioner's broken and it's 95 degrees outside, you did something wrong. Like something went catastrophically wrong. If you could pick up on it earlier, great. But if you're there at the end, it's like, I need to get feedback. Like, not many of my customers say no when it's this kind of situation. So I must have done something wrong. What was it? Or any variant of question that would help you in that. But that feedback coming back and forth is crucial, because at the end of the day, we're working together. All I'm doing is bringing my expertise to the table. Ultimately, you tell me how you want me to use my expertise here. So it should be a true partnership. But a lot of times it's trust, which goes back to the emotional side. It's like, I didn't meet some need. I missed something. There's a question that's left unanswered, and so I need to answer that. But I like that you gave feedback. Like, I really, really like that.
Yeah, I just don't think and maybe that goes back to not wanting to hear, I don't know what other people have to say, or not wanting to think that other people can view it differently than you do. But I do know through all that we've done through here, and that no one sees the world the same way that you do. So it's, getting some feedback on how those two things have gone so far off track from one another. I don't know how else do we navigate that unless we ask those questions.
I think the only thing you can do is just ask.
Yep.
If you're off the beaten track. And same thing for your scenario this morning. I viewed it this way. How did you view it this morning? I'm not always going to say that this is the best thing in the world to say to a kid, because then they end up being like, okay, I'm going to do that, more often. But at the end of the day, if you say in 5 years from now, how much, are you going to even remember this? Yeah. Is it going to be that big a deal? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's maybe an important question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll revisit this topic when we are not both. So here's another little tidbit for our listeners.
Yeah.
Don't try and reason or have a reasonable conversation with anyone.
Yeah.
Particularly teenage girls, but don't try and have that conversation with them.
I feel it. I feel you on that.
Yeah. With the emotions.
Well, let's recap this today. So emotional intelligence is one of those things that it is a skill that can be worked on. It's something that we can grow in if we choose to do that. And it seems like from our discussion today that face-to-face interaction with people and being able to create an experience for somebody is something that's becoming more of a lost art or a dying art over time. So it is something that we need to keep alive because it can make a big difference. It makes a big difference for our people in the office, interacting with other teams. It makes a difference for our customers out there, and the same thing in our relationships. And then even from today, from some of the skills that we talk about, breath work, going for a walk, meditating, journaling, that can make a big difference. But then also looking at outputs. If my current output in my life isn't what I want, then I just need to change that input.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm always going to let you do the rapid fire recap.
It's a done deal. I got you.
I don't have nothing else to add. I do think it's like so many other things, it's running in the background. Yep. So let's give it some time, attention, and effort, and you can make more money. You could do better at work. I mean, what's not to love about that?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Dewey. Let's not talk about that.
No. All right. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify or Apple so you never miss an episode. We will be back with you again in 2 weeks. Have a wonderful time until we see you again. Until then, peace, love, and easy does it.
Appreciate y'all.